The winning blueprint presents the Redskins Report.
Welcome, my fellow Redskins sistren and brethren. Welcome to the Redskins Report. I am your man and resident Redskins fan. Lou, thank you for joining me. I feel like one Vincent Lombardi right now. What the hell is going on out there? That's how I feel right now. No one said this thing was going to be easy. And anything worth having doesn't come easy. We all know that. But the football gods are not making this trek back to the top of the NFC East any easier. I mean, he's going to make us work for it. The football guys have spoken and they said, hey, if you guys want to repeat as NFC East champions, we want to throw a couple of obstacles and hurdles in your way. You're going to have to sidestep a few, leap over a few, and if you want it bad enough, you'll get there, but you're going to have to work for it. It's not going to be easy. Of course, we all know about the wrench of Robert Griffin III being injured. That was the first wrench thrown in our plans early on. But we seem like, and I don't want to jump the gun here, but it seems like we've avoided that one. That's one of those pitfalls that, hey, we got lucky. This guy seems to have healed very quickly. Let's hope he stays healthy. But I don't want to focus on that today. What I want to focus on is all of the transgressions and transactions and things that have happened over the last week and over this offseason. And I don't want to narrow it to just this week because I think this week has just highlighted all of the things that have already transpired in this offseason. I'm talking about all the injuries, all the suspensions. It's going to be tough. So let's just start with the timeline, and we'll start back with Rob Jackson being suspended for the first 4 games for illegal substance abuse, and he used some kind of over-the-counter drug. It wasn't clear by the league, had a substance in it that he shouldn't have been using, probably some type of diuretic. Boom, he's gone for the first 4 weeks of the season. You're thinking to yourself, okay, I mean, we can handle that. Orakpo's coming back. You got Kerrigan on the other side. We'll be fine. You know, Rob Jackson was an extra piece, on this defense, a guy that we want to see get in the game more, but he's not someone that we can't go without. So, okay, 4 games for Rob Jackson sucks, but all right. You're willing to take your medicine on that one. So we move on, and we get to camp, and you're like, okay, wow, we finally got to camp. It's here. And boom, right out of the gate, Keenan Robinson, done for the season. And it's like, really? This guy started to play really good football midway through the 2012 season as a rookie. They started to feel more comfortable putting this guy in a game. And he hurt himself. And I'm thinking, okay, he's gone for the rest of this season. He'll be back. And London Fletcher, more importantly, was back. So he'd get that tutelage that we needed him to receive on London Fletcher's way out of the door. So I'm like, this is great. He'll be back. He'll learn. He's athletic. I think he can help us. This will be great. 2013 will be great for Keenan Robinson. And before we even put the pads on, this guy is gone for the season with a torn pectoral muscle. And the Redskins are holding out hope that this guy can come back. He's not coming back. This is a 5 to 7 month injury. He will not be back. We've seen how long it took Orakpo to come back, and he injured himself in week 2 of the season, and we didn't see him anymore. And so he's not coming back. Forget about Keenan Robinson returning for the Redskins in 2013. He is done. And so, boom. Again, another minor blow. This isn't a major blow. It's not an offensive lineman that starts. It's not a wide receiver that's key. And I don't want to diminish Keenan Robinson's role on this football team, but it's one of those injuries. You kind of wipe your brow and say, all right, Keenan Robinson gone. It sucks. It's not a really good look. And you don't want to see anybody get hurt, but he's a backup. So you can kind of cushion that blow. Then you find out Adam Carricker, a guy that has went through numerous off-season surgeries, and I talked about this about 2 or 3 months ago, that he had a setback. Well, he had another setback and had to have his third surgery on his knee. He's gone for the season. The Redskins are holding out hope too that he'll be back. He's not coming back. He's out another 4 to 6 months. He's not going to be back. So boom, there you have it. Jackson gone first 4 weeks of the season with the suspension. Adam Carricker gone for the season again. Keenan Robinson gone for the season again. And then you turn around and boom, just when you think, okay, we've basically taken all of the damage, we've taken all of those sucker punches to the stomach, boom, they hit us with another uppercut. So no Adam Carricker, so you think, well, Jarvis is going to have to step up, and you thought that to yourself anyway before the injury, that we're looking for big things from Jarvis. And then, bam, that nice little swift, quick uppercut to the gut. Once again, Jarvis suspended first 4 weeks of the season for PED usage. Come on, what are we doing here, fellas? And it's so unnecessary. And Mike Shanahan, I think he said it best. This was so avoidable. And that's the frustrating part. These guys have been told over and over, if there's not a specific label on the bottle that is cleared by the National Football League, and they have little labels on these bottles that tell you it's okay to take this supplement, do not take it. Now Jarvis Jenkins is gone for the first 4 weeks of the season, so we are already staring at a very daunting task in the first quarter of the season with no Rob Jackson, now no Jarvis Jenkins. You're going to be without Keenan Robinson, so I don't know if the Redskins are going to address that internally or if they're going to go out elsewhere. I think in the interior of this linebacking corps, we had Brian Keel already on the roster from last year. He's a core special teamer and a guy that I thought played really well in the preseason last year, but just got caught up in the numbers game and didn't make this roster. I expect him to be someone that's in the mix for that position, as well as a guy like McElroy out of Texas that came into the league with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that he was on his roster last year, and so we might be a little comfortable with him as well. We'll see, but those are two guys that I think they'll look at. We also were scheduled to have Joe Mays come in, a linebacker from the Denver Broncos, to come in and work out. I don't know if the Redskins are actually considering signing Joe Mays. I think they just want to put this guy on speed dial, just in case we have any kind of setbacks at the middle linebacker position with any other players. They'll have this guy's number. They can call him up and bring him in and see what he can do for us. But I think the Redskins are going to have a wait and see approach with this whole process. At defensive end, I'm not as worried because it's not like this is a season-long injury or an injury at all. It's a suspension, first 4 games, and the Redskins, I think, have a built-in mechanism here in a guy like Philip Merlin, who was on his roster last year, that we got essentially at the end of the 2012 season. He was brought on really early on in the process, and I feel like, hey, here's a guy that could potentially help us. I didn't think he had a shot at making this roster initially. Now I feel like he's a guy that you probably need to have on this roster. If he plays well enough, I can see Philip Merlin making his 53-man roster initially because of these suspensions. And so we'll see. It looks like a guy like Chris Baker, who was working at the nose and a little bit at defensive end, is going to have to kick outside to defensive end now. Him and Kedrick Golson, who we re-signed in the offseason, will be over there probably having to start at defensive end now across from Stephen Bowen on that defensive line. And so we'll see what adjustments the Redskins make to kind of offset some of these things that have happened early on in camp. But it's just frustrating. I'm hoping that we've gotten all of this stuff out of the way right now because it's too early in camp for us to already have this much news this early on. Now, look, it could be a lot worse. I don't want you to feel like I'm complaining about this because you look around the league, the Ravens have lost tight end Dennis Pitta to a fractured hip for the season, and we're talking about potentially a career being ended here. When you start talking about the hip, we saw Bo Jackson, and of course, modern science has really evolved since then. But a hip is a hip, is a hip, is a hip, and if your hip is broken, and in this case it is, and it's fractured, and it's dislocated as well, and you got to get a hip replacement, your NFL career is over. So that's a devastating blow to the Baltimore Ravens and to Dennis Pitta. He was going into a contract season, and so I really feel for him. You look at a divisional opponent right up the street in the Philadelphia Eagles, they lose Jeremy Maclin. And we're talking about starters and key contributors here. He's gone for the season with an ACL tear, so it could be a lot worse in DC. Don't allow me to be the bearer of bad news and make you feel like it can't get any worse, because it can get a lot worse in DC, trust me. And so we're fortunate that the guys that we've either lost or are suspended aren't guys that are key contributors in terms of, hey, this guy is someone. The Eagles are going to miss Jeremy Maclin. I mean, he was their leading receiver last season. That's the kind of production they now have to replace. You look at the Ravens, they lost Anquan Bolden in the offseason. These tight ends were going to have to step up. Dennis Pitta was going to have a bigger part of the offense, and he started to step up, and he had his best season of his career last year. He's now gone, and so these are key contributors we're talking about. For us, these are role players. Jarvis Jenkins, we were looking for him to take that next step, but he's not a guy that we have to have. We played a whole season without Jarvis Jenkins before. And so 4 games, we can cushion that blow. You look at Keenan Robinson, not a starter. So even though you want this guy in a backup capacity, you want this guy learning from a guy like London Fletcher, from Perry Riley, he's not going to be there. We can soften that blow. We can deaden the impact of that by having someone else step up. So it could be a lot worse, but I hope we've gotten a lot of this stuff out of the way early on, because it can't continue at this pace. We won't last as a football, because eventually, if it continues, it's going to be someone we rely on very heavily. It's going to be an offensive lineman. It's going to be a receiver. It's going to be a running back. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we've gotten a lot of our transgressions out of the way early on, and that the football gods have gotten all of his Redskins sanctions out of the way. Let's hope that the football gods have handled what they needed to handle with us, and now we're free to resume our normally scheduled programming in Washington. So that's a little bit of what I wanted to talk to you about. I just thought, man, a lot of things have happened over the last couple of days on the injury front, on the suspension front, and I didn't realize the problem was this bad in Washington. We are the leaders over the last 3 years. We are the leaders in the clubhouse in most suspensions because of PEDs. And I didn't realize we were that bad. But yeah, we're starting to become one of those teams that annually have guys suspended for not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's a bad rap for us. We don't want to be that team that is always having guys suspended. And you look at the list, 8 over the last couple of years. Yeah, a guy like Tenard Jackson, who hasn't played it down for us, pads our stats, makes us look bad. You also look at Cedric Griffin, who got suspended last year. You look at Rob Jackson. Now you look at Jarvis Jenkins. And so, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of guys. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And so we got to be careful. We got to be careful. We had an offensive lineman, Jordan Black, be suspended. And so some of these guys aren't huge contributors, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's still a reflection of this franchise, and we got to be better. We simply have to be better as a franchise. But let's just hope that the football gods are done with us and we can move on in DC, because right now camp has gotten off to a very unceremonious start, and it can't continue at this pace, or we will really be in some serious trouble in 2013. But that's all I have for you today. Just wanted to come on quickly and vent a little bit about how camp has gotten off to such a rough start for us. But look, no one said it was going to be easy. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. And if we want this thing, we're going to have to go out and get it. No one is going to give it to us. So next man up. It's too early to be saying that, but that's the mantra in this league. Next man up. So that's what we got to start saying. Hey, next man up. So there you have it. I'm a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. My Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to the Redskins. See you next time. Have a good one.
The Redskins Report.